where the stars are as elusive as foxes,
and the clouds from the ends to end all.
Every sentence has its own story to tell.
Words strung together to form their own types of beauty.
Dearest gentlefolk, admission is free,
so pay at the door,
pull up a chair,
and sit on the floor.
And be welcome to Poetry Perch. Today's episode is mostly focused on Halloween, or, more accurately, the history of the holiday, including Samhain, the most oldest, at least that we can find, representation, and then All Hallows Eve. The first version of the holiday, as I said, was an ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, dating back over 2,000 years. They celebrated the Celtic New Year on November 1st and believed that between the passing of the years, the veil between life and death was at its thinnest. To celebrate the New Year, Druidic priests built giant and sacred bonfires where people gathered around to sacrifice animals and burn crops as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, and attempted to tell each other's fortunes. They are also where the idea of pumpkin carving comes from, though, as they didn't have pumpkins since those were native to North America, the traditional carving is that of turnips. They believed that the restless spirits of the dead that came through the blurred veil might harm them, and that frightening faces in the window would ward them off, hence the carving of the vegetables. The Romans eventually conquered a majority of Celtic territory that spanned modern-day Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Britain, and northern France, and incorporated two of their major holidays into the Celtic New Year festival. Feralia, the day to honor Pomona Feralia, was the late October festival where the Romans commemorate the passing of the dead, and Pomona was a goddess of fruit and trees, which explains why apples became so inexplicably linked to the holiday. Pope Gregory III expanded the festival of All Martyrs' Day to include All Saints as well as All Martyrs, and moved the observance from May 13th to November 1st. By the 9th century, the influence of Christianity had spread into Celtic lands, where it gradually blended with and supplemented older Celtic rites. In AD 1000, the Church made November 2nd All Souls' Day, a day to honor the dead. It is widely believed that the Church was attempting to replace the Celtic festival of the dead with a related Church-sanctioned holiday. The All Saints' Day celebration was also called All Hallows' Eve, or All Hallowmas, from the Middle English meaning of All Saints' Day. And the night before it, the traditional night of Samhain in the Celtic religion, began to be called All Hallows' Eve, and eventually Halloween.
Nice.
Now that we have the history, let's move on to the poems. First up, we have a rhyme for Halloween, written by Maurice Kilwine Gwyver and read by Samantha Slavin.
Hello, I'm Sam Slavin, and I'm reading a rhyme for Halloween by Maurice Kilwine Gwyver. Tonight, I light the candles of my eyes in the lee and swing down this branch full of red leaves. Yellow moon, skull, and spine of the hare, arrow me to town on the neck of the air. I hear the undertaker make love in the heather. This candy maker, poor fellow, is under the weather. Skunk, mouse, raccoon, they go to the doors in threes, with a torch in their hands, or please, oh please. Baruch Spinoza and the butcher are drunk. One is the tail and one is the trunk of a beast who dances in circles for beer and doesn't think but twice to learn how to steer. Our clock is blind, our clock is dumb. Its hands are broken, its fingers numbed. No time for the martyr of our fair town, who wasn't a witch because she could drown. Now the dogs of the cemetery are starting to bark at the visions of her bobbing up through the dark. When she opens her mouth to gasp for air, a moth flies out and lands in her hair. The apples are thumping, winter is coming, the lips of the pumpkins soon will be humming. By the caw of the crow on the first of the year, something will die, something will appear.
Thank you dearly for that reading, Samantha. What did you think of that poem? Personally, out of the ones we've picked, it's easily one of my favorites. Just easily, in my opinion at least, almost categorizes and imbues the ideas and words of what this, at least to me, holiday means.
I think it's really nice. Like, it's a really basic thing to say, I know. But it's not like, oh, what am I reading? I was like, yes, this is like fall, this is Halloween, and it was really nice. And Samantha did a great job reading it, of course.
As she always does.
Yes, as she always does. She's awesome.
She is. For symbolism and what this might mean, It really is simply just the spirit of the season. Candles and pumpkin carving, candy and the trick-or-treating. This one's a bit less Celtic and more Germanic, with Oktoberfest, I remember being mentioned and at the very least alluded to, as well as witches, which were very, very tied to the holiday and still are, as well as apples, as mentioned before, from the Roman influence. And of course, crows for death, because Halloween will forever and always be a holiday at least slightly tied to death because of all of its origins.
Yeah.
And speaking of,
Speaking.
crows specifically symbolize the Celtic goddess of war and death. The Morrigan, her symbol is the crow, which also ties back into it originally being a Celtic festival for the dead.
Yeah, Halloween, death, always linked.
One way or another.
Yep.
But yes, I did enjoy this poem.
I enjoyed it. I liked it. So what's our next poem?
Well, next up is a poem that is a little bit more famous. It's Song of the Witches by William Shakespeare, and this one is read to us by Ella Marzoff.
Hi, I'm Ella Marzoff, and I will be reading Song of the Witches by William Shakespeare. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of fenny snake in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blindworm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Cool it with a baboon's blood, and then the charm is firm and good.
Oh, I love Shakespeare. I'm a big Shakespeare fan.
I can tell you're
Yeah.
just someone who's slightly into theater.
So I like theater, and I absolutely love classic literature, and of course he's kind of the main guy for it. So
I think this is one of the poems our viewers are a lot more likely to recognize, even if they didn't know it was a Shakespeare poem, because so many Halloween-themed decorations, movies, shows always seemingly have that double, double toil and trouble that this poem starts off with.
Harry Potter, I'm pretty sure. The little frog song, I think they sing, little part of it, I think. Or something they sing it in. But I was like, oh, when I heard her say it. So, what's the symbolism in this?
This was written in the 1500s, once again by Shakespeare, and it talks a lot about witches and how witches are bad and evil. This is both most likely directly influenced by the witch hunts, which went on in England from the 1400s up to the 1800s, and the church not liking magic because that's not Christian, it's pagan. And it's basically just they're viewing this as bad because it's not what they know. And Shakespeare, being Shakespeare, capitalized on that.
Yeah, he has a lot of stuff like that.
Yes, but it is quite fun to read.
Yes, it's so much fun to read.
Now, thank you, and let us go to a break.
You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again. Come, let me love you, let me give my life to you. Let me drown in your laughter, let me die in your arms, let me lay down beside you, let me always be with you. Come, let me love you, come love me again.
Hello there, and welcome back to Poetry Perch. Next up, we have another poem. This one is my personal favorite, I don't know about you, and it's called Theme in Yellow. It is written by Carl Sandburg and read to us, once again, by Samantha Slavin.
I'm Sam Slavin. I'm reading Theme in Yellow by Carl Sandburg. I spot the hills with yellow balls in autumn. I light through the prairie cornfields, orange and tawny gold clusters, and I am called pumpkins. On the last of October, when dusk is fallen, children join hands and circle round me, singing ghost songs and love to the harvest moon. I am a jack-o'-lantern with terrible teeth, and the children know I am fooling.
What do you think of that?
I really like that one because fall's my favorite season, for sure. And that really just was like what makes fall so enjoyable. It reminds me of like just going outside in the leaves. And like what it was when I was younger.
Very much, yes.
Yeah.
It's less death and superstition and more of just simple fun for kids. Going outside, running in leaf piles, carving pumpkins as a child was always an interesting experience because either you loved to get covered in the pumpkin guts or you didn't want to touch them. I didn't want to touch them.
I didn't want to touch them. That was me.
And it was always just so fun to be able to just be carefree and be a child for a while because you get out of school, children obviously love that, and then you go out and get free candy while dressing up. And for kids, 9 times out of 10, that is a triple plus.
Yes, it's a triple plus, except for the stress of trying to decide what you're going to dress up as. That was always a struggle for me.
The older you get, the more stressful it is until you just go back to, I don't care.
Okay.
But yeah, that one is mostly about just the nice stuff.
The innocence.
Especially, I love the little when you get the little pumpkins at the grocery store. That reminded me of that because it's cutesy, but also very much all-encompassing of what the season is almost about.
Yes, I love that. Okay. What is our next poem?
Well, the next poem is Ghost, written by one Cynthia Huntington and read by Ella Marzoff.
Hi, I'm Ella Marzoff, and I am reading Ghost by Cynthia Huntington. At first you didn't know me, I was a shape moving rapidly, nervous. At the edge of your vision, a flat, high voice, dark slash of hair across my cheekbone. I made myself present, though never distinct, things I said that he repeated. a tone you could hear but never trace. In his voice, silence followed by talk of other things. When you would sit at your desk, I would creep near you like a question, a thought you would scurry. Across the front of your mind, I'd be there, ducking out of sight. You must have felt me, watching you in my small eyes fixed on your face, the smile you wandered at on the lips only. The voice on the phone quickly and fully of business, all that you saw and heard and could not find. The center of those days, growing into years, growing inside of you out of reach. Now with you, forever in your house, in your garden, in corridors of dream where I finally tell you my name.
That one, in my opinion, is more leaning back towards the spooky, creepy, mysterious bit.
Yeah, it felt a little sad to me.
It was melancholic.
Yeah, that's a good word to say.
Because it's both, how to explain it well. The ghost is still there in the story,
Yeah.
at least. And that, not being able to interact with the dead, is saddening because you can't do anything about it.
It's like purgatory, almost. Yeah.
And it just makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's in a good way, but it makes you think.
Yeah, and it makes you think in a way. It's definitely very, like, fitting to the theme of this, like, Halloween and stuff, because I don't know if it's just me, but, like, when I see, like, Halloween themed stuff, there's always something that's like, oh, this, like, spirit is trying to reach us from beyond. That's kind of remind me of, like, those, like, episodes of, like, TV. And like all that type of stuff. That's what it made me think of.
Yeah.
Like that idea.
And it's like, you understand it comes from the veil between life and death is thinnest here, and that makes sense. But then it's just almost warped sometimes for example, money and television, or for this one, to get a point across. I like this one. I don't like those TV shows.
This one.
You can tell.
This one has a heart to it. But it makes you think too about like Halloween time, how just different we perceive things. Because I mean, there's like this, and there's like TV shows, but then there's also like Charlie Brown, where he puts a sheet over his head. So
that
it
one
just
is
shows.
always adorable when you
Yeah,
watch it.
that one can stay. But it shows just how like different we see things around this time. That and death can be such a sad subject. And,
But it
like,
can also be something to rejoice in.
Yeah. So
Which is
I think-
almost odd to say, but
yeah, it's odd, but Halloween again, it fits that. I think
It's
this is a good poem.
I like it.
I like it.
It's a bit sad, but I do love it.
Yeah.
And our last and final poem we have read to us shall be Sawin, written by Annie Finch and read by Samantha Slavin.
I am Sam Slavin, and I'm reading Sawin by Annie Finch. In the season leaves should love, since it gives them leave to move through the wind toward the ground they were watching while they hung. Legend says there is a seam, stitching darkness like a name. Now when dying grasses veil earth from the sky in one last pale wave, as autumn dies to bring winter back and then the spring, we who die ourselves can peel back another kind of veil that hangs among us like thick smoke. Tonight at last I feel it shake. I feel the nights stretching away, thousands long behind the days, till they reach the darkness where all of me is ancestor. I move my hand and feel a touch move with me, and when I brush my own mind across another, I am with my mother's mother. Sure as footsteps in my waiting self, I find her, and she brings arms that carry answers for me, intimate, awaiting bounty. Carry me, she leaves this trail through the shutter of the veil, and leaves like amber where she stays, a gift for her perpetual gaze.
Thank you for reading that, Sam. That is another one of my favorite poems here, but that is mostly because it's respectful of the dead while also still touching on the more historical and pagan roots of the holiday.
I thought it was really nice. Like, I don't have a lot of like fancy words to say right now besides, again, like back to the poem in the very beginning. it felt very like it encompassed a lot about fall and maybe like moving on and like history, bringing kind of that. So I think though it's time to take one last commercial break.
I think so too. On to commercial break we go.
Another summer day has come and gone away from Paris or Rome, but I wanna go home. Maybe surrounded by a million people, I still feel all alone. Just wanna go home. Oh, I miss you, you know. Let me go home. I'm just too far from where you are. I wanna come home. Let me go home. I've had my run, baby, I'm done. I gotta go home. It'll all be alright. I'll be home tonight. I'm coming back home.
You know there's a light that glows by the front door. Don't forget the keys under the mat. When childhood stars shine, always stay humble and kind. Don't expect a free ride from no one. Don't hold a grudge or a chip, and here's why. Bitterness keeps you from flying. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When the dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. Yeah.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Those are all of the poems that were pre-recorded for this segment, but we have a special treat now. We will be reading The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
Who I am actually distantly related to. It's through my dad's side. And yeah, it's pretty cool, like to say like, oh yeah, I'm related to him. Obviously my last name's Allan. He has it in his name. So we are somehow related. And we did like the DNA test. It's really cool. So
Okay.
that's my favorite little fun fact.
That is a quite cool fact, especially when reading poems.
Yes.
He's such a big name.
Yeah, he
Well,
is.
let us get into it. Once upon a midnight jury, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more."
Ah, distantly I remember it, was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vanity I had sought to borrow from my book's surcase of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore. For the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here and evermore.
And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entering entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, and nothing more."
Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door, darkness there and nothing more."
Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered name, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore!" Merely this, and nothing more.
Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thread it is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more."
Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more.
Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance if it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient, raven wandering from the nightly store. Tell me what thy lordly name is on night's Plutorian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore."
Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore.
But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only the word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore."
Startled at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master with unmerciful disaster, followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore."
But the raven, still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird, and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore, meant in croaking "Nevermore."
Then I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining was the lamplight gloating o'er. She shall press, ah, nevermore.
Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung up serpent whom footfalls tinkled on the tuttered floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this long Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore."
"Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed, thee here ashore dissolve yet all undaunted on this desert land. Enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if this distant ascend, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
Be that word or sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shores. Leave no black plume as a token that thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
So we see that nevermore is repeated quite often in this poem.
Yes.
And what is your interpretation of it? Because I know mine.
My personal interpretation of this is whoever is the person speaking is in love with this woman named Lenore and is slightly losing it.
Yeah. So I read this in my 8th grade literature class because, okay, so I have like some stuff from that. But what I think is, yeah, he's kind of losing it, but I think Lenore's dead in this because Raven, dark, something like that.
That makes sense.
So that's what I think it is, but also I have a very niche thing for like sad stories like that. So maybe it's that. But I really do love that poem. So.
Well, we shall leave the interpretation up to you. And now, where the moon glows in meadows bright,
And the grasses whisper their prose for all.
every story tells its own and words abound.
Beauty shines her face through every line.
Dearest gentlefolk,
Admission was free.
so you paid at the door
You pulled up a chair.
and sat on the floor, and
And we look forward to your return to Poetry Perch.
Goodbye.
Bye.